Hey guys, tonight we're heading somewhere a little colder, a little louder, and significantly worse smelling. You're about to wake up on the Eastern Front during World War II, specifically in Stalingrad. Don't get too excited. There are no castles, no dragons, and definitely no victory speeches. Just snow, starvation, and a lot of people pretending frostbite is just a mild inconvenience. So before we dive in, take a second to hit like and subscribe, but only if you actually like these sleepy, miserable historical journeys. And leave a comment with where you're watching from and what time it is. It's oddly calming to know how many of you are also wide awake, staring into the void with me. Now, turn the lights down, maybe grab a blanket, though ideally not one made of army surplus wool, because you're about to get real familiar with that exact flavour of discomfort. And maybe put on a little ambient snowstorm in the background, just to set the mood. Not that you'll need it. The visuals coming up will do the job. Congratulations. You've just woken up in a trench outside Stalingrad. It's late 1942. The snow is 6 inches thick and still falling. The temperature is somewhere between unpleasant and legally dead. And your hands have stopped feeling like hands and started feeling like 2 damp loaves of freezer-burned bread. You're a German soldier. Wehrmacht. Not SS, not high command, not a general. You're not even a guy with a functioning belt buckle. You're the other guy. The one history forgets unless there's a pile of them. You're cold, hungry, underdressed, and extremely replaceable. Welcome to the most miserable military campaign of the 20th century. Don't worry, you won't be expected to know the entire layout of the city. That's because you'll spend most of your time huddled behind a burned out tramcar, praying the Soviet sniper you haven't seen yet doesn't feel bored today. The good news? You're not alone. The bad news? Everyone else here is just as terrified, frostbitten, and disillusioned as you are. You might have imagined war would be exciting. Maybe a sense of brotherhood. Maybe glory. Maybe you'd at least get proper boots. Instead you get trench foot, explosive diarrhea, and the privilege of holding a rifle that freezes shut every night and jams every morning. And that's if you're lucky enough to have a rifle. A lot of guys don't. Don't worry, they're told to just pick one up off a corpse, which is convenient because those are everywhere. This isn't the part of World War II that makes it into most school textbooks. There are no cinematic speeches here, no flags waving dramatically, just rats, ruined buildings, and a lot of grown men trying to eat snow to trick their stomach into thinking it's soup. There's no warm-up round, no gentle onboarding. You're dropped straight into the worst urban combat humanity has ever created, in the middle of one of the coldest Russian winters on record, with a supply line stretched so thin they snap if someone sneezes too hard in Poland. And in case you're wondering, no, the German army did not pack well for this. Turns out, planning a summer invasion of Russia and expecting it to wrap up before Christmas was not a masterstroke of strategy. So you get the honour of freezing to death in a summer uniform with a thin overcoat and boots that might actually make you colder the longer you wear them. The ground is frozen, your fingers are frozen, the food is frozen, the war is not. The Soviets have turned every building into a fortress, every sewer into a sniper nest, and every pile of rubble into a potential death sentence. And your orders? Take the city, all of it, preferably by yesterday, so you're here now, in Stalingrad. A city that used to be a place people lived in and is now more like a massive collection of destroyed concrete, broken glass, and scorched bricks loosely pretending to be civilization. The wind screams constantly. The artillery never stops. And the most comforting sound you'll hear all day is probably your own teeth chattering, just to remind you you're still alive. Barely. Now that you're awake, freezing, and slightly terrified, let's take a look at how the rest of your day is going to go. Spoiler alert, it's not good. You start the day by not really waking up, because you never really slept. You dozed. In shifts. In a hole that barely qualifies as shelter. Half covered in boards, mud, and other men's breathing. The cold isn't just in the air. It's in your bones. It's in your teeth. It's in your will to keep existing. You're sleeping in a foxhole, but that's a generous term. It's a shallow, muddy depression in the ground, filled with half-frozen water, bits of broken wood, and the smell of unwashed men layered over the metallic scent of blood that no one wants to acknowledge. There's a blanket, technically. It's stiff, damp. Smells like someone used it as a towel and then buried it for 3 weeks. You curled up under it last night like a sad meatloaf and tried to imagine warmth. It didn't work. What little body heat you had left was immediately sucked into the air and then mocked by the wind. It howls across the steppe like it's personally offended that you're still breathing. Your boots, assuming you still have both of them, are wet. Not from snow, from the inside. Sweat, ice, melted slush, possibly someone else's foot rot. The leather has gone soft and then stiff and then soft again. Your socks are a war crime. They're stiff enough to stand on their own and smell like a chemistry experiment gone wrong. You'd take them off, but the last guy who tried that lost 2 toes and cried for an hour. The air hits your face like a punch made of knives. You breathe through your nose and instantly regret it. Your nostrils freeze shut. The snot becomes a popsicle. Your breath fogs and clings to your scarf, if you're lucky enough to have one, then refreezes so that by mid-morning it's basically a face bandage made of ice. You talk less now. Not because there's nothing to say, but because moving your jaw takes energy. And every calorie counts when your daily meal consists of half a frozen potato, and maybe some soup water that technically qualifies as warm only if you define warm as not quite solid. Everything hurts. Your knees feel like bricks. Your hands, even inside gloves, are raw, cracked and numb. One finger might be blackening, but you're pretending not to notice. The other guys aren't talking about it either, because if you admit to frostbite, you might get removed from the line. And removal isn't a hospital. It's a pile of snow, a blanket over the face, and maybe a cigarette if someone's feeling generous. Around you, men are stirring, slowly. No one jumps up in the Eastern Front. You rise like an ancient relic being unearthed from the permafrost. Carefully, one limb at a time. Someone coughs and hacks up something that sounds like a lung. No one reacts. Coughing is just part of the ambience now, like artillery, or the occasional scream. Your weapon is beside you, wrapped in cloth to keep the frost off. That works sometimes. Other times it just freezes shut anyway. Metal shrinks in this cold. The bolt gets stuck. You've seen guys pee on their rifles to thaw them. That works, until it doesn't. And then you're standing there, pants around your ankles, rifle still jammed, while someone 100 yards away tries to turn you into modern art with a Mosin Nagant. You don't check your phone. You don't check the time. You don't even ask what day it is anymore. None of that matters. time on the Eastern Front is measured by things like before the last air raid, after the last can of beans, some time after Muller froze to death. The only calendar you follow is the one where every square is marked survive. There's movement down the line. A few guys are stomping their feet, trying to bring circulation back. One of them is crying, quietly, which is honestly fair. He's 19. Probably joined thinking he'd see the world. Now he's seeing it from inside a half-dug snow pit with a crust of dried soup on his chin and frozen spit on his collar. The sky overhead is grey, not the poetic kind of grey, not the melancholy winter morning kind of grey. This is industrial cement grey. Soviet despair grey. A colour that doesn't look like it came from nature so much as from a factory that makes sadness in bulk. The clouds aren't moving. Nothing moves here unless it has to. Even the birds have left. The only thing flying overhead is a Soviet reconnaissance plane, and nobody bothers shooting at it, because honestly, what's the point? You're not even at the frontmost line. Not yet. That's further into the city, where the buildings are more rubble than structure, and the Soviets are so close you can hear them breathing. For now, you're just behind it, in staging, which is hilarious, because the word staging implies planning, resources, coordination. What you actually have is chaos in a snow globe, and a commander who hasn't slept in 3 days and thinks coffee is a personality trait. Food, theoretically, is coming. The supply convoy is late again. Might be snow, might be partisans. Might be that the last truck got turned into a smouldering heap by a Soviet shell, and now the rest are just sitting somewhere outside the city, waiting to decide whether hunger or fear is worse. You check your pockets, a crumpled cigarette, half a match, a crust of hard bread you were saving for a better time. Joke's on you. There are no better times. You chew it now. It hurts your teeth. One of them is loose. You hope it just falls out soon so you can stop noticing it. Someone near you mutters about rotation, about being pulled back from the front, about maybe getting hot soup and dry socks. No one says anything. You all know it's not happening. Not this week. Not this month. Probably not ever. A mortar lands somewhere not far off. The sound is sharp, close, then muffled by snow. You don't flinch. None of you do. You flinch so much your body gave up. It just logs the sound as background noise now, like wind or the scraping sound your boots make when you try to walk, and the souls decide they'd rather not participate today. Somewhere out in front, the Soviets are moving. You can hear the crunch of snow, the distant thud of boots on ice. They're digging in, just like you. Everyone's digging in, trying to outlast each other in a war that's basically become a death contest with bonus hypothermia. You feel something shift under your coat. It's a flea, or a louse, or possibly both. You'll deal with it later. Maybe. You haven't really changed clothes in weeks. Laundry is what happens to other people in other wars. Here, hygiene is theoretical. You smell like boiled socks and wet fear. No one's judging. They smell the same. The sun is up now, technically. You can't tell. The light is so weak it barely casts shadows. But it's enough to start the day. Which means another round of digging, patrolling, ducking, waiting, freezing, and hoping today is not the day your name gets scribbled in some logbook next to the words presumed frozen. The orders come down, you're rotating forward. Closer to the city. Closer to the front. The sergeant says it like he's asking you to take out the trash. You nod. Everyone nods. No one says anything. There's nothing to say. You pack up what little you have, some ammunition, the blanket, your rifle that may or may not function, and start trudging toward the sound of gunfire and collapsing walls. This is Stalingrad, and your day is just getting started. You make it through the night. Barely. Not that it felt like sleep. More like intermittent unconsciousness, interrupted by the occasional artillery shell, distant machine gun fire, and the unmistakable sound of someone nearby throwing up into the snow. You didn't move. You just laid there, eyes closed, pretending it was someone else's problem, until it wasn't. Now it's morning again, or at least what passes for it here, a few hours of hazy, colourless sky that does nothing to warm the air or improve morale. You peel open your eyelids like they're stuck together with frost. Because they are. Your eyelashes froze overnight, again. Everything hurts. Your knees feel like rusted hinges. Your back is stiff. Your fingers are curled into claws, half frozen into the position they were in when you fell asleep, clutched around your rifle like a man spooning his only possession that might keep him alive another 12 hours. And then there's the socks. Oh, the socks. You don't remember the last time they were dry. You're pretty sure they've fused to your feet. They feel like frozen towels someone dipped in motor oil and sadness. You try to move your toes, just to see if they still work. They do, sort of. The big one twitches. The others just kind of vibrate in protest. You're not sure if it's blood flow or the early stages of something worse. Taking your boots off is a gamble. On one hand, they're wet, freezing, and smell like a haunted swamp. On the other hand, taking them off might rip the skin clean off your heel. That happened to a guy 2 foxholes over. They pulled his sock off and half his foot came with it. He didn't scream. He just looked down, blinked slowly and asked if anyone had any extra cigarettes. No one did. Everyone looked away. He didn't make it to the next rotation. You wiggle your feet, hoping that somehow the friction will do something productive. It doesn't. It just hurts. You stop. Someone a few feet away is mumbling in their sleep. Might be German, might be Polish, might be a fever dream. The accents blur together now. You don't really know anyone's name. Just faces. And not even full ones. Just eyes above scarves, dirt-covered foreheads, bloodshot stares. The concept of unit cohesion died somewhere back in November. Now it's just about surviving the shift. Maybe helping someone else, if it doesn't cost you a finger. There's movement near the trench entrance. A figure stumbles in, coated in snow, coughing, dragging something that used to be a supply crate. He drops it like it owes him money, then collapses next to it with a groan that sounds like it came from the depths of his soul. He's not dead, which technically counts as a win. You crawl toward the crate. Not walk. Crawl. Because standing too fast makes the blood rush to your head in a way that feels like being punched by God. Plus, it's warmer below the wind line. The crate creaks open. Inside, some canned meat, a few stale biscuits, and exactly 1 tin of coffee grounds that smells like victory and tastes like disappointment. Still, it's something. You don't eat right away. You stare at it for a bit, like it's a hallucination. Then slowly you pull out a biscuit, knock the ice off it with the butt of your rifle, and start chewing. It takes a while. The biscuit is dry and dense, like someone tried to compress an entire bakery into one concrete hockey puck. But it's food, kind of. Someone else coughs, hard, wet, deep. It echoes. You pretend not to notice, even though it's close. Could be flu, could be typhus, could just be the standard lung damage everyone's developing from sleeping in air that's 30% soot and 70% broken dreams. You shift in your spot, trying to find a position that doesn't feel like sitting on frozen rocks. Spoiler, there isn't one. Your backside has gone numb. So has your left hand. You shake it. Nothing. You breathe on it. It helps for about 4 seconds. Then the cold creeps back in like it owns the place. Someone passes you a cigarette. It's half burned, slightly soggy, and clearly recycled from someone else's fingers. You take it anyway. Smoke it slowly. Pretend you're somewhere else. That maybe there's a fire. That maybe your mother's cooking breakfast and not crying into a letter she hasn't been able to send because supply lines don't carry grief. There's a lull in the shelling. Brief. But long enough to create the illusion that things might be calming down. They're not. The Soviets are regrouping. That's what the officers say, that they're pausing, preparing, and when they come again, it'll be worse. You watch the street ahead, or what's left of it. A collection of shattered bricks, burned out trolleys, and frozen corpses no one has the energy to bury. There's a body near the lamppost that's been there for 3 days, half covered in snow, eyes open, staring at nothing. No one knows whose side he was on. No one's checked. You scan the rooftops. No movement. Doesn't mean anything. The snipers don't move. Not until they're ready. You heard about one guy who lit a cigarette too close to the edge, took a puff, exhaled, and then there was just a hole where his cheek used to be. He didn't drop the cigarette, he just fell over with it still in his mouth. Eventually the order comes down. Move forward. New position. Closer to the Volga. You sigh, not loudly, just enough that your breath fogs and dissipates in the freezing air. You grab your gear. Sling the rifle over your shoulder. Check the chamber, even though you know the bolt's half frozen and probably won't fire until you curse at it for a few minutes. You step out into the open, boots crunching over snow that hides 1,000 hazards. Shell casings, shattered glass, frozen blood. Maybe a landmine if you're feeling particularly unlucky. Ahead, the city looms. Or what's left of it? Stalingrad, a monument to urban decay, Soviet resistance, and German overconfidence, all stacked into the same broken skyline. You can see the smokestacks. You can hear the distant rumble of tanks. You can feel your stomach knot itself into something small and tight and cold. Someone mutters a joke. Something about promotions being awarded posthumously now. No one laughs. Not because it wasn't funny, but because they've all heard it before. You trudge forward. Past walls riddled with bullet holes. Past dead animals frozen stiff mid-stride. Past the husk of a tank that someone tried to live in until it got shelled last week. A burst of machine gun fire echoes in the distance. You drop instinctively. The snow is hard. Your knee slams into something metal. You grit your teeth. Wait, listen. Nothing. Might have been a warning shot. Might have been aimed at someone else. Might have been a test. You get up. Keep going. Your socks are still frozen. Your rifle still might not work. The city is still a meat grinder. And you're still here. You're not sure why. But you keep walking. Because in Stalingrad, there is no other direction. You stop moving long enough to realise you're starving. Not metaphorically. Not the I skipped lunch kind of hungry. The real kind. The kind that gnaws. The kind that makes your body start quietly panicking. Your stomach stopped growling a while ago. Now it's just waiting. Empty and annoyed, like a disappointed landlord. It's morning probably. doesn't really matter. Time in Stalingrad is just different shades of grey, broken up by explosions and coughing fits. But someone down the trench line mumbled about breakfast, so you figure, sure, let's pretend that's a thing we still do. You drop your pack. Not that there's much in it. Some spent cartridges, a crumpled field ration wrapper, maybe a pencil with no point. At the bottom, wrapped in a filthy rag and clinging to life, is what passes for food. A crust of bread so hard it could qualify as a blunt weapon, and a sliver of processed meat that looks like it gave up during manufacturing. The bread used to be standard issue. Rye, dense, meant to last. Now it's more like military-grade chalk. It's frozen solid. You smack it against the wall. It makes a sound like a rock hitting metal. That's breakfast. You try to bite it. Big mistake. It resists. Your jaw hurts. Your teeth protest. You stop. Then you remember the trick. Hold it in your armpit for a while. Let your body heat do the work. So you do. You tuck the bread under your coat like it's a small disappointing pet. Wait a few minutes. Doesn't help much, but it's marginally less dangerous now. The meat, or what the label claimed was meat several supply convoys ago, is a slice of greyish stuff sealed in a can with a mystery film on top. You peel it back, slowly. The smell hits first. Something between rust and sadness. But you eat it, slowly. You chew like it's a job. It tastes like regret. You chew anyway. Someone nearby offers you a spoonful of ersatz jam. It's not jam. It's sweetened beet paste, made from something they scraped out of a supply warehouse that hasn't been restocked since October. Still, it's a break from meat and bread. You take a bite. It's cold, sour, and vaguely chemical. You thank him anyway. A few metres down the trench, someone's boiling water in a mess tin. Real water. Mostly melted snow, hopefully filtered through something. Maybe a sock? Maybe not. He drops in some coffee grounds. Not enough for flavour. Just enough to stain the water and pretend it's coffee. The colour changes. The warmth doesn't. You get a cup. It's lukewarm, bitter, and tastes like ash. You drink it slowly. Not because it's good, but because it's warm. Sort of. You feel steam on your face. You don't smile, but something in you loosens slightly. That's what passes for joy now. Watery, gritty, fake coffee in a trench full of frozen men. The officers don't eat with you. They have their own supplies. Usually. Cans with labels. Crackers that haven't been chewed on by mice. Occasionally something hot. If the field kitchen managed to survive the night and hasn't been obliterated by a mortar yet. Once, you saw one of them unwrap a chocolate bar. Real chocolate. German. Clean wrapper. He didn't offer anyone a bite. Just unwrapped it slowly. Ate it like a king, and then tucked the foil away like it might be worth something later. You hated him for it. Briefly, then forgot him entirely. That's how things go out here. If you're lucky, you still have a ration pack left. The ones with the waxed cardboard box and tiny paper menu. You already know what's inside. A few crackers, a smear of jam, powdered soup that requires boiling water, which you don't have, a small envelope of something labelled fat, which isn't a joke. It's literally a square of lard, meant to provide energy. You spread it on bread and try not to gag. Most days, you skip the ritual. You just chew whatever's handy. A biscuit here, a strip of dried sausage there, assuming you haven't traded it for cigarettes or boots that still have soles. Sometimes there's a soup line. Not a real one. A guy with a pot, ladling out hot liquid that might have had beans in it 3 weeks ago. You hold out your tin. He pours. You nod. You don't ask what's in it. It's hot. That's enough. You eat standing up, huddled under your coat, staring at the sky like maybe it will show mercy today. It won't. A shell goes off somewhere. You keep chewing. Slowly, carefully. Your body is conserving energy now. Digestion feels like a group project it doesn't want to participate in. You think about food back home. Warm kitchens. Real bread. Meat that didn't come out of a can. The image flickers and dies. Too dangerous. Nostalgia is a liability here. It slows you down. Makes you soft. You focus on chewing. One bite at a time. One swallow. That's the job now. No one talks much during meals. There's nothing to say. You know what everyone's thinking. That it's not enough. That it will never be enough. That your stomach is going to start looking at your own leg and wondering how tender it is. Someone laughs. It's not a good laugh. It's high, cracked, and ends in a cough. He says something about eating rats. You're not sure if he's joking. You hope he's joking. You finish your bread. Last bite's the worst. Dry, frozen, bitter. But it's calories. And that's the only currency that matters now. You lick your fingers. Not because they're clean, but because there might be crumbs. Even the grease counts. You pack up what's left. Half a biscuit, maybe. A strip of something vaguely resembling dried carrot. You stash it in your coat. Might need it later. Probably will. You brush the crumbs off your lap. Shake the ice out of your gloves. Your stomach is still empty, but quieter. For now, that's the goal. Keep it quiet. Keep it functioning. Someone yells down the line. Patrol's heading out. Orders are coming. Movement again. You sigh deeply. It doesn't help. Breakfast is over. If that's what you want to call it. Back to the war. Your belly isn't full. Not even close. But it's less empty, and that's about as good as it gets. So you shift, pull your scarf up, and brace for the next part of the morning. The routine, or what's left of it. You remember mornings from before the war. Shower, shave, coffee, maybe some clean socks. You didn't appreciate it. No one did. Now your morning routine involves a freezing pit, half a toothbrush, and the constant anxiety of being turned into mist by someone you'll never see. First step, check your weapon. Always. Even before you wipe your face or stretch or blink. The rifle gets priority. You pull it out from under your coat, where it's been slowly collecting condensation all night. The bolt's stuck. Again. No surprise. The grease they gave you to maintain it has frozen into something between sap and glue. You curse under your breath and work it loose, slowly, careful not to snap the handle. That happened once. The guy next to you had to pry open enemy rations with a shovel for the rest of the week. Also, he got shot. Next step. The face. You haven't had a real shave in weeks, maybe months. You lost track when the last blade snapped in half mid-stroke. Now it's just a rusty straight razor. You share with 3 other guys. You clean it with snow. There's no water. Not the clean kind anyway. You scoop some slush into a tin cup and hold it over a small flame made from burning letters and the corner of a supply crate. It steams. Barely. You splash a little on your jaw and instantly regret it. The warmth lasts a second. Then your skin screams. You shave by feel. No mirror. No time. Just touch and guesswork. You don't do it to look good. There's no one left to impress. You do it because facial hair gets stiff in the cold, freezes over, and then rips the skin when it catches on your scarf. That's a lesson you only learn once. So you drag the razor down your face in careful lines, flinching every time it catches, no shaving cream. Just hope and the dull sensation of steel against raw skin. Someone next to you is brushing his teeth. Sort of. He's chewing on a twig. Birch, maybe. It's frozen. He spits into the snow, wipes his mouth, shrugs. That's oral hygiene now. No toothpaste, no mouthwash, no dental care of any kind. Your gums bleed regularly. You stop noticing. You adjust your uniform. Layers over layers over layers, and still not enough. Wool undercoat, canvas tunic, greatcoat over that. All of it damp, crusted with sweat, dirt, and whatever you slept on last night. You tighten your belt. Not for function, just to trick your stomach into thinking it's full. Then you shove your hands into your armpits and stand there, waiting for orders. Someone taps your shoulder. It's patrol time. You and 4 others. One has a submachine gun with a bent barrel. Another is limping. The third hasn't spoken in 2 days. The fourth is new. Doesn't know yet that the twitch in his left eye is going to get worse. You grab your gear and step out onto the street. The cold hits like it forgot something yesterday. Your boots crunch. The snow sounds different here. Hard, dry, brittle. Like walking on chalk. You move slow, rifles up. Eyes scanning rooftops, windows, shadows. Nothing moves. That's not comforting. It means they're waiting. The patrol route is short. 2 blocks down, 1 left, check the supply drop, come back. In theory. In practice, it's a maze of craters, collapsed walls, and dead men frozen in the poses they died in. One guy is sitting upright against a wall, helmet in his lap, mouth open. No one touches him. He's part of the landscape now. You don't talk. Talking makes noise. Noise gets you shot. The morning air is quiet, except for distant artillery and the occasional crack of rifle fire somewhere else. You check the windows as you pass. Some are broken, some just black. All are dangerous. Snipers, always snipers. The Soviets are good at it, too good. They don't move, don't flinch, just wait. Hours, days. You never hear the shot that kills you, just the sound of the guy next to you dropping with a hole in his temple. That happened last week. Guy named Ernst. He was humming. Now he's buried under a pile of bricks near the radio post. Probably still humming, just at a lower frequency. You reach the corner and crouch behind a burned-out car. Someone signals. You nod. 2 men move forward, checking the street. It's clear, for now. You sprint across, boots slipping on ice, heart hammering even though you don't have the energy to panic anymore. The supply cache is gone again. Either the Soviets got it, or someone on your side decided they needed it more. Doesn't matter. You leave a note, not because anyone will read it, but because procedure helps keep the illusion that things still function. You turn back. The route is the same, but the air feels different. Heavier. You scan the rooftops again. Still nothing. Still wrong. Your breath fogs. Someone behind you coughs. You wince. Then crack. A shot. Close. One of the guys hits the ground, screaming. Not dead. That's worse. Thigh wound. Bleeding fast. You drop, drag him behind the car. Hands numb, fumbling with a bandage that looks like it's already been used. He screams louder. You slap a hand over his mouth. Not to be cruel, just to survive. The others return fire, wild, uncoordinated. The sniper's already gone, or still there just waiting. You don't know. You never know. You haul the wounded guy to his feet. He can walk. Barely. Good enough. You carry him half the way back, breath ragged, limbs on fire. You make it to the trench. Barely. He's dropped off with the medic. You don't ask how bad it is. The medic shrugs. He's seen worse. You hope he means that. You slump against a wall. Rifle down. legs twitching. No one talks. Just panting. Shivering. Waiting for the next thing. It always comes. Someone passes you the razor again. You forgot you didn't finish shaving. You take it, because that's the routine. The razor goes back in your pocket. For now. There's no rush. No one's checking your grooming habits out here. The war doesn't care if your sideburns are regulation length. The only thing that matters is that you can still hold a rifle and sort of walk. Now that the adrenaline is burning off and the shivering has turned into a steady internal tremor, you start noticing your uniform again. Not in a how do I look today kind of way. That instinct died months ago. This is different. You're noticing it because it's trying to kill you. The German army gave you a uniform. Technically, it consists of a thin wool tunic, matching trousers, a greatcoat that might have fit 3 men ago, and boots that were probably made for a parade, not a frozen meat grinder on the banks of the Volga. The wool is scratchy. That was annoying in October. Now it's unbearable. It holds moisture like a sponge, but never lets it go. It soaks up your sweat, the melted snow, the blood you don't even notice anymore. Then it freezes, then it thaws, then it freezes again. You've been wearing the same layers for weeks. You tried to dry them once, over a fire. That was the day your coat caught a spark and nearly lit up like a torch. You put it out with your hands, burned them, wore gloves over the blisters for 3 days like it was normal. It kind of is. Your shirt, if you're still lucky enough to have one under the layers, is technically cotton. In practice, it's a thin band of damp cloth stuck to your back like a second skin made of cold. You haven't taken it off in a while. You're scared of what's underneath. Probably mould. Possibly frostbite. Definitely a rash. The trousers are the same story. Wool, stiff, permanently wrinkled in all the worst places. They rub when you walk. They chafe when you sit. You stopped adjusting them. You just deal with the raw patches and open sores like everyone else. There's a quiet mutual understanding that no one here is comfortable, ever. Then there's the greatcoat, the big one, the outer layer. It's heavy, even when it's dry. Which it never is. It soaks up snow like a mop. It flaps when you move, sags when you stand still, and smells like it's been steeped in despair. It's supposed to be olive grey. Yours is mostly brown now. Dirt, oil, blood, ash. You don't remember the original shade anymore. No one does. The buttons are half missing. You replaced one with a bent nail, another with string. You found that string in a pile of rubble and pulled it out of someone else's sock. Didn't ask, didn't explain. They just nodded. That's what you do out here. You scavenge, adapt, survive. Underneath it all, you're wearing underwear, maybe. Maybe not. Depends on how many days it's been since you last changed, and whether or not lice forced you to burn the last pair. You feel them now. The lice, crawling, biting, nesting in your seams, in your waistband, in your collar. You scratch until you bleed, then scratch more. Everyone has them. It's not even disgusting anymore. It's just part of the uniform. You'd kill for a bath. Even a cold one. Just to peel the layers off and scrub your skin with something that isn't snow or your own fingernails. But there's no soap, no tub, no privacy. Just the occasional rainstorm and the hope that no one's watching as you strip to your waist and try to rub the rot off with a damp rag. Let's talk boots. They're leather, supposedly. Thin, cracked, barely waterproof, with soles that are more suggestion than protection. You stuff them with newspaper if you can find any. Sometimes you steal a page from an old Russian flyer. crumble it into balls, shove it down the toe. Doesn't help much, but it gives your foot something else to think about. The leather has shrunk from the cold. Your toes curl involuntarily. The stitching is starting to come undone. You tied the heel back together with wire a few weeks ago. It held. Mostly. One of the laces is just string now. From someone's kit bag. Maybe yours. Doesn't matter. Some guys use rags. They wrap their feet like mummies and pray it keeps the frost out. It doesn't. Frostbite spreads anyway. You've seen what happens. First, the colour changes. Then the feeling goes. Then the skin starts to crack. Then it turns black. Then they cut it off. No anaesthesia. Just a knife and something to bite down on. Your gloves are fingerless. They weren't originally, they just wore through. The fingertips poked out last month, and you never fixed them. You need to feel the trigger. You tell yourself that. Truth is, you stopped caring. The tips of your fingers are already numb. You could lose one and not notice until dinner. The helmet is the only part of the uniform that still sort of works. Steel, cold, heavy, clunky. It saved you once. A chunk of brick ricocheted off it during a mortar blast. Left a dent. Gave you a headache for a week. You're oddly fond of it now, like a loyal pet that occasionally punches you in the forehead. Sometimes you see the Soviet uniforms. They're not better, just different. Thicker, maybe. Made for winter. Padded coats. Fur hats. Scarves that don't feel like wet burlap. You envy them. Then you shoot at them. Then you forget about the envy and go back to scratching your neck until it bleeds. You used to think military uniforms were about pride, discipline, identity. Now they're just a collection of damp, rotting fibres, barely holding your body together. No rank insignia. No polish. Just a walking pile of misery in army grey. There's a guy 2 bunkers over who wears a scarf his wife knitted. It's pink, doesn't match anything, but he wraps it around his neck every day like it's armour. The colour's faded now, dirt stained, ripped at one end. Still he wears it, says it smells like home. No one mocks him, not anymore. You do what you can to stay warm. You wrap your arms tight, you breathe into your gloves, you sit with your knees pressed to your chest and imagine a coat that actually works. It doesn't, but pretending is sometimes the only insulation you've got left. So you stand there, wearing 6 layers of wet fabric, 2 pounds of dirt, and the collective sweat of 1,000 miles of retreat, and you prepare to go outside, again, because the uniform doesn't care how you feel. It just holds your body together long enough to get shot in it. Eventually, nature calls. Not politely. Not gently. It doesn't knock, wait for a response, or offer you time to prepare. It barges in like a drunken officer demanding you answer immediately, regardless of your circumstances, dignity, or body temperature. Here's the situation. Your stomach has been staging a quiet rebellion for hours. It started with a low rumble, then cramps. Then that slow, twisting sensation that lets you know something inside you is either about to exit violently or file a formal complaint with your internal organs. Either way, you're not making it another hour. Now, normally, this would be simple. Find a bathroom, close the door, do your business, maybe flush, maybe light a match, maybe leave pretending it wasn't you. But this is Stalingrad, the Eastern Front. There are no bathrooms, no doors, no plumbing, no flushing. Just snow, shame, and a general lack of privacy that makes you nostalgic for trench foot. You scan the area. Options are limited, very limited. There's the latrine, a term used loosely here. It's a shallow hole in the ground behind some sandbags, partially frozen, partially filled, and surrounded by half a broken door, someone stuck in the snow for modesty. The modesty doesn't help. Everyone knows what you're doing back there. The smell gives it away. That, and the fact that you're walking funny when you come back. You wait your turn. Because yes, there's a line, no schedule, no toilet paper, but somehow still a queue. You stand there with your rifle slung over your shoulder, trying not to make eye contact with the guy in front of you, whose entire soul looks like it's trying to leave his body before his bowels do. Eventually, it's your turn. You trudge over, boots crunching on ice, hoping the wind isn't too strong today. You position yourself as best you can. Drop your trousers just enough to get the job done. You can't afford full exposure. Not with the temperature. You'd freeze solid mid-process. The cold hits like betrayal. Your entire lower half instantly regrets every decision that led to this moment. You squat, balancing awkwardly, trying not to touch anything, trying not to slip, trying not to think about the steam rising from the pit in front of you. It's not graceful. It's not quick. Your body fights you every step of the way. The muscles are frozen. Your balance is off. The ground is slick. You nearly fall. You don't. Barely. No one's looking. They never are. Everyone gives the latrine space. Not out of courtesy. Out of survival instinct. The smell can be weaponized, and no one wants to hear what another man sounds like when he's losing a small war inside his own intestines. There's no toilet paper. That's not a thing here. You're lucky if you have rags. Some guys use pages from old newspapers. Some just use snow. You used your last rag yesterday. Today? Snow again? It's cold, rough, and incredibly effective at reminding you just how exposed you are to the elements. You wipe, shiver, curse quietly, and stand up slowly, one muscle group at a time. You reassemble your layers. Not well, not cleanly. You tell yourself you'll fix them later. You won't. The waistband is wet now. It'll freeze soon. That's a problem for later, you. You walk back to the trench. No one says anything. You don't say anything. It's understood. You've just returned from one of the worst parts of your day, and everyone respects that, silently. Sometimes, you don't make it to the latrine. Maybe you're under fire. Maybe it's night. Maybe your body gives up and makes the decision for you. That happens. More than anyone admits. When it does, you dig a hole with your boot, do what you have to do, and cover it up fast before someone steps in it. The medics deal with the worst cases. Diarrhea that doesn't stop. Blood in the snow. Parasites. No one talks about that stuff unless they have to. But everyone knows. The guy in the corner who hasn't stood up all day? Probably not just tired. Probably dealing with something that will kill him in a week if the cold or the Soviets don't get there first. Sanitation is theoretical now. Hygiene is a rumour. The trench is a mess. Urine puddles freeze solid. Feces gets buried mostly. If not, it gets trampled, spread, forgotten. Then remembered when someone gets sick. You get used to the smell. Kind of. You stop noticing it unless the wind shifts. Then it hits you all at once. Like a wall made of cabbage, body odour, and wet wool. You gag. Everyone does. Then you go back to pretending it's not there. There are stories of men getting shot mid-defecation. You don't ask if they're true. You believe them anyway. It feels plausible. You're at your most vulnerable, pants down, hunched over a hole, when a sniper decides it's time to remind you that nowhere is safe. That thought follows you every time you go. You sit, you squat, you shiver, you pray, and then you stand up and go back to pretending you're a soldier again. Back in the trench, your ears start working again. Not because anything's improved, they just never stopped absorbing. The cold messes with your hearing. It dulls the edges. But once you're still, once you stop focusing on balancing over a frozen hole in the ground, you hear it all. There's no silence in Stalingrad. There's no quiet. There's just layers of sound stacked on top of each other, buzzing in your skull like a broken radio you can't turn off. Welcome to the daily soundtrack, performed live by the greatest orchestra of suffering Europe has ever assembled. First, the artillery. It's always there. Distant thumps. Nearby cracks. Earthquakes in miniature, rolling through your chest, shaking the frozen mud you sleep in, rattling your teeth even if you've already lost a few. Soviet Katyushas scream like banshees. Long, rising howls that end in shattering impacts and showers of dirt, steel, and unfortunate people. German howitzers respond with dull, heavy thuds, less dramatic, more resigned, like even the shells know this is going nowhere. You learn to tell them apart, by sound, by timing, by the way the ground reacts. You can hear a shell leave the barrel. You know it's coming before it lands. You brace every time, even when you say you won't. Your shoulders clench. Your breath catches. Your eyes snap shut, even though that won't help. The fear is automatic now, built in, like breathing. Then there's the machine guns. Intermittent, angry, impatient. German MG-42s bark fast, a buzz or sound you could once pick out in training. Now it's just background noise. The Soviet DP-28s are slower, heavier, like someone slamming metal plates together down a hallway. Both kill just fine. Doesn't matter who's firing. If you hear one start up, you duck. If you hear it stop, you wait. If it doesn't start again, you peek. Sometimes it's far away. Sometimes it's so close, it feels like someone's dragging nails across your spine. You try not to think about the bullets, where they go, who they find. There's a constant risk one will find you, randomly, without warning. You tell yourself it won't be today. You say that every day. Next, the mortars. Sneaky bastards. No scream, no warning. Just a hollow thump somewhere off in the rubble, and then a sudden, sharp explosion overhead. Shrapnel, dirt, sometimes body parts. You get real familiar with the sound of metal slicing air. It's not cinematic. It's not like the movies. You don't run in slow motion. You don't hear a high-pitched tone while the world blurs around you. You just hear a bang, then feel a sting, or a heat, or nothing, depending on how lucky you are. Then someone screams, or doesn't. Speaking of screams, they're the next track in the symphony. They come in all varieties. The sharp, panicked yell of a man who just got hit. The lower moan of someone bleeding out slowly. The frantic, choked cries of a young soldier realising his leg is no longer part of the team. You hear them in your sleep. You hear them while eating. You hear them while walking past frozen corpses, wondering if that one screamed too. Some are muffled. Others echo. Some stop fast. Others go on too long. Once, you heard a guy calling for his mother. For 10 minutes. He was 20 metres away. You couldn't get to him. Nobody could. He bled out in the snow, voice cracking, breath clouding until it didn't. That was 3 weeks ago. You still hear it sometimes. Mixed in with that is the coughing. Constant. Dry, wet, rasping. Some from colds, others from flu, others from lungs filled with dust, ash or worse. You know when someone's close to dying and their cough changes, gets shallow, slows down, stops. Sometimes you cough too, just to check you're still alive. Then there's the yelling. From your own side, officers barking orders, mostly pointless ones. Go there. Hold that. Don't move. Why are you moving? Why aren't you moving? Everything's in order. Nothing's clear. You nod, even when you don't understand. You go where you're told, or try to. If you're lucky, someone else argues and takes the blame. Russians yell too, across the line. Sometimes taunts. Sometimes nothing you can understand. Doesn't matter. Tone's universal. You know when they're angry, when they're celebrating, when they're afraid. You hear their officers screaming, their guns firing, their boots crunching snow. They're not far. You dream about their voices sometimes, not because you understand the words, but because the tone always sounds more human than the orders coming from your own trench. And over all of it, under all of it, is the wind. Cold, constant, creeping through every crack in your coat, your gear, your skin. It howls at night. It moans through ruined buildings. It whistles past your helmet and makes the snow sing. It's always there, sometimes louder than the guns. You try to ignore it all. You tell yourself it's just noise. You pretend it's normal. You get good at picking out the dangerous sounds from the harmless ones. A man yelling, ignore it. A man not yelling anymore? Worry. Sometimes the worst sound is no sound at all. The silence between barrages. The pause before the next attack. That's when your heart kicks into gear. When your body remembers it can still panic. When the absence of noise is louder than the explosions. You wish for music. A real song, a radio, anything. Once, someone hummed a lullaby. Quietly, under their breath. You almost cried. Not because it was beautiful, but because it reminded you there was once a world with melodies. Now the only rhythm is shells, boots, coughs and screams, and it plays on repeat. You're called up. Not a big operation, they say, just a building. 1 block over. Clear it, hold it, wait for further orders, standard stuff. No one believes it, but you nod anyway. Because saying no isn't really a thing anymore. The city isn't a city now. It's a puzzle made of shattered buildings, burnt out shells of apartments, collapsed factories, and skeletons of things that used to be useful. Brick, steel, glass, all turned into jagged cover. Every window a death trap. Every alley a grave. You move out in a line, slow, rifles up, boots crunching over broken plaster and ice. It's cold, but you're sweating. That happens every time. The fear does it. Not even full fear. Just the background kind. The kind that hums in your bones all day long. The building in question used to be a school. Maybe. Or a store. Or something else that had walls and doors and toilets before the artillery turned it into a pile of angry geometry. Now it's a 3-story husk with no roof, half a staircase, and God knows how many Soviets waiting inside. You crouch behind a wall while the sergeant mumbles the plan. Go in fast. First floor, then second. Clear every room. Watch the windows. No shouting. No wasted ammo. Just quick, clean, mechanical. You go first or third? It doesn't matter. You've all gone first at some point. You step through a broken doorway, rifle up, breath shallow. The first room is empty. Just rubble and furniture that looks like it got into a fight with a tank and lost. The next one isn't. 2 shapes move in the corner. Fast, low. You fire. So does someone else. It's over in a second. The noise bounces off the walls. Ears ring, smoke rises. The bodies don't. You keep moving. This is the rhythm now. Step. Scan. Shoot. Breathe. Repeat. The floors are covered in ash, bullet casings, and pieces of people. You stop flinching after the second room. There's no time. Grenade through the next doorway. You duck. It goes off. Dust fills the air. You charge in. Someone's screaming. One of yours. You keep going. Someone else handles him. By the time you get to the top floor, you've lost track of how many shots you've fired. Your shoulder aches from the recoil. Your jaw hurts from clenching it. You can't hear properly. Just muffled bangs and the high-pitched whine that always follows a close explosion. There's a moment where it's quiet. You stop. Look around. Just broken furniture. Smashed walls. Torn papers. A child's toy in the corner. Burned and half buried under rubble. A teddy bear maybe. You don't look at it long. Outside the sky is still the same grey slab. You hear gunfire in the distance. The fighting never stops. It just rotates around the city like a storm with no centre. No direction, just pressure. You hold the building. For now, no reinforcements. No food. Just the five of you, sitting in a room with no roof, guarding a staircase made of splinters, hoping the next wave takes a different route. No one talks. You reload, slowly, hand shaking just enough to make it difficult. You notice your fingernails are black. Could be grime, could be frostbite, could be both. One guy's bleeding, shoulder wound. He shrugs it off. You wrap it anyway. Not because it will help much, but because there's nothing else to do. He thanks you with a nod. You nod back. Someone asks the time. No one answers. Someone else laughs. It's not a good laugh. You sit by a window, peer through a crack in the wall. Across the street, another building just like this one. Could be empty. Could be full of Soviet infantry. Could be both, depending on the floor. You watch, wait. The silence stretches. Not peaceful, just long, tense. Like the whole world is holding its breath before something awful happens. Then you remember what you're doing. Holding a building. Not for strategic value. Not for a breakthrough. Just for symbolism. Just to say it's yours. Even though it's worthless. Even though it'll probably collapse before nightfall or get shelled again in the morning. You're not fighting for ground anymore. Not really. You're fighting for inches. For stairwells. For corners. For rooms with half a wall left. You take one building, they take another. You push forward 6 meters. Lose 10 tomorrow. The front doesn't move. It twitches. No one wins in street fighting. Not here. Not in this place. You either survive the day, or you don't. That's the metric now. You used to think of war as lines on a map. Arrows, flags, units shifting forward. Now it's whether you can hold a hole in the wall long enough for someone else to crawl through it. You can feel the exhaustion setting in. Not in your body. That's been gone for a while. In your mind. Something inside you is quieter than it used to be. Not calmer, just empty. You used to react to things. Flinch. Argue. Care. Now you just nod. Move. Fire. Reload. Sleep. If you can. Eat, if there's anything. Breathe, if the dust doesn't choke you first. The sergeant comes back, says hold tight. Reinforcements might come tonight. Or tomorrow. Or never. No one reacts. You lean back against the cold concrete. Close your eyes, just for a second. Another shell explodes in the distance. You open them again. Still here. Still fighting for nothing. He comes into the room without knocking. Not that there's a door left to knock on, just a splintered doorway and half a frame. He doesn't announce himself. He doesn't need to. Everyone knows who he is. Your lieutenant. Technically your commanding officer. Functionally another cold, hollow body with stripes on his sleeve and way too many maps in his coat pocket. He's 24, maybe 25, but he looks older, not in the seasoned, respected way. More like the skin around his eyes stopped renewing itself last month. His jawline's still sharp, but his cheeks are sunken. His lips cracked. His hair's greasy and matted under a helmet that's been dented 3 times and still somehow fits. He used to shave. You remember that? Back in September? When he still gave orders with energy. When he thought there was a plan. Now his stubble's patchy and thin, like it's trying to grow without his permission. Like even his facial hair's too tired to commit. He says something. A quiet command. New orders. Relocate. Reinforce the line near the tractor factory. Someone groans. He ignores it. Not because he doesn't care. Because he has nothing left to spend on sympathy. The well is dry. He pulls out a notepad. It's damp. Pages stuck together. He reads from it anyway. No one's sure if it's real intel or just recycled nonsense passed down from someone else who also hasn't slept in 4 days. But that's how it works now. Information flows like river sludge. Slow, murky, and probably contaminated. His voice is low, mechanical, like someone recorded him saying all the standard phrases and now just plays them back one at a time. Hold position. Expect resistance. Minimal Soviet presence. You hear the last one and almost laugh. Minimal. There's no such thing. Every time someone says that, you lose 3 men and a stretcher. You look at him while he talks. Not with admiration. Not even with resentment. Just study. Trying to figure out if he still believes any of it. If he really thinks we're holding the line. If he honestly believes Berlin knows what's happening here. He catches you looking. Brief eye contact. You both glance away. This guy probably went to officer school, learned about tactics, formations, the proud tradition of the German army. Probably wrote essays about leadership. Probably had a girlfriend who sent him letters at the start. She's stopped now. Maybe she doesn't know where to send them. Maybe she does, and chooses not to. You remember his first week? He called everyone by name, tried to memorize faces, asked if you were warm enough, if you needed supplies. One guy broke down crying after that, not because he was touched, but because he knew the lieutenant wouldn't last long. Somehow, he did. But what's left isn't really a person anymore. It's a voice box wrapped in wool and exhaustion. He eats when he remembers to. Sleeps when someone forces him to. Doesn't smile, doesn't joke. Doesn't write in his journal anymore, if he ever did. Just stares at the lines on the map, like they'll eventually rearrange themselves into something less suicidal. When he speaks now, it's like reciting math. Emotionless. Calculated. Sentences that cost nothing to say but everything to follow. Advance to the 2nd floor. Watch for crossfire. Suppress the left side. Cover the retreat. One time he yelled, just once, back in November. A private panicked and ran the wrong direction during a firefight. The lieutenant shouted his name. It cut through the gunfire. He dragged the kid back into cover. Saved his life. The kid died 2 days later from a stomach wound no one could treat. Since then, no yelling. Just quiet disappointment when someone doesn't come back. He leads from the front. That's the worst part. You can't even hate him properly. He's not in some warm tent with a radio and hot coffee. He's out here with you. Covered in dust. Wrapped in the same frozen misery. Freezing his fingers off, trying to draw arrows on maps that make less sense by the hour. He goes on patrols. Kicks in doors. Clears rooms. Throws grenades. Gets covered in other people's blood doesn't even flinch anymore. You've seen him step over bodies like they were piles of laundry. Once, a shell landed near his position, close enough to knock him down. You rushed over, helped dig him out of the rubble. He stood up, brushed the plaster off, and said, "Mark that building as gone," then walked off. That was it. You think about what happens when he eventually breaks. Because it's coming. Everyone knows it. He's running on fumes. Just hasn't hit the wall yet. Maybe he'll snap quietly. Wander off into the smoke one morning. Maybe he'll go loud, drop his rifle, scream at the sky, and throw his map into a fire. Or maybe he won't break. Maybe he'll just keep shrinking inside until there's nothing left. A uniform full of commands with no soul behind them. Just momentum. He finishes giving the orders, looks around the room, doesn't ask if anyone has questions. No one ever does, not anymore. He turns and walks back down the stairs. No applause, no salutes. Just boots on concrete and the sound of your next plan already falling apart. You check your gear after he leaves, not because you're diligent, because there's not much else to do while waiting for the next round of misery. You open your pouch and take stock. It takes 3 seconds. One half-empty ammo clip, a crumpled field dressing, a rusted tin of meat that may or may not still be edible, and a spoon you've started thinking of as your most valuable possession. This is what supplies look like now. There's a rumour that a resupply convoy is making its way into the city. There's always a rumour. Someone swears they heard trucks last night. Another guy says he saw crates being unloaded near the grain elevator. Then someone else points out that the grain elevator was shelled flat 2 days ago. So unless those crates are packed with disappointment and broken dreams, they're probably not coming. The truth is, supplies haven't made it in regularly for weeks. The Luftwaffe drops things sometimes, sure. Crates strapped to parachutes, drifting lazily into nowhere, usually landing on the wrong side of the river, or in Soviet-held sectors, or into the Volga itself. You can always tell when a drop happens. Everyone goes silent, listening for the thump. Then the scramble starts. Whole units vanish into the smoke, trying to reach it. Sometimes they come back with chocolate, sometimes with extra boots, sometimes they don't come back at all. You were told to expect rations, once a day, maybe twice if things were going well. They're not. So you eat when you can and chew slower to trick your stomach into thinking it's being heard. The bread's been frozen for so long it has the consistency of drywall. You dip it in water to soften it, but that just makes it taste like drywall that sat in a drain. Water isn't much better. The snow is clean, but the melted version isn't always. You fill your canteen from puddles and boiling barrels, filtered through a sock if you're lucky. One guy boiled a piece of metal pipe once, just to kill the taste. Didn't help, but it gave him something to do. Ammunition is rationed too. You don't fire unless you have to. That's not an order. That's just logic. You might not get more. Some of the bullets you carry now were pried out of sandbags or looted off corpses. You check each one before loading. If it's dented or bent, you toss it and hope the next one's better. There's one guy in your unit who's still carrying a bolt-action rifle without a scope. No reason, just that nobody ever gave him a scoped one. He says he doesn't need it. Says he can feel when to shoot. No one corrects him. Because arguing takes energy. Medical supplies. Almost funny. You've got a roll of gauze that's seen more action than half your squad. A bottle of iodine that froze solid weeks ago. and a pair of shears that someone swiped from a Soviet field hospital and hasn't cleaned since. The medic's kit is a joke. Bandages, some morphine that's been borrowed more times than used, and a jar of mystery pills that no one wants to take, but everyone will eventually. You remember when new gear used to arrive, back in the early days, fresh uniforms, dry boots, shiny canteens. Hell, you even got chocolate once. Real German chocolate. Now, if someone hands you an unopened box, your first reaction is suspicion. What did they trade to get this? What's the catch? Is this a trap? Sometimes units trade supplies. Barter. A pair of gloves for a box of matches. A spare belt for a handful of bullets. Once, someone traded a spoon for a scarf. Best trade he ever made, he said. He still freezes at night, but at least he doesn't have to eat with his fingers. There's a guy down the line who claims he still has coffee. Real stuff. Ground beans in a tin. He guards it like it's gold. Only brews a cup once a week. Drinks it alone. Eyes closed. The ritual is the point, not the caffeine. No one's tried to steal it, yet. When supplies do show up, it's like a miracle. A crate with intact canned goods. Actual socks. A functioning radio. You open it carefully, like it might explode. Sometimes it does. Not literally, but emotionally. You open a box and find 10 rolls of barbed wire and a bag of nails. Not helpful when you're starving, but the lieutenant pretends to be excited. Says we'll fortify something? Sure. Fortify morale, maybe. Uniform replacements? Don't make me laugh. You patch what you have, with thread, wire, or strips of someone else's coat. You wear holes through your knees and elbows and keep going. The idea of a clean shirt feels like luxury. The idea of 2 pairs of socks is fantasy. You try not to think about what's in the crates the officers get. You've seen them. The wooden boxes stamped with codes, carried in with more care than any wounded man. They don't open them near you. They wait. Go around the corner. Sometimes come back smelling slightly better. That tells you enough. Supplies come sometimes, but not for you. Not where you are. Not this deep. You're too far in, too close to the line, too frozen into the map to be worth restocking. You get the leftovers, the salvage, the dropped, lost, or stolen, and you make do. Because what else is there? You keep the spoon, polish it when you can. Not out of pride, out of habit. Because it's yours. Because it hasn't betrayed you yet. Because in this place, that counts as equipment. There's a stretch of road between 2 ruined buildings near the centre of the city. A few blocks of exposed space, maybe 20 metres wide. On paper, it's just a route from one sector to another. In practice, it's a death sentence with brick walls. You call it Sniper Alley. No one knows how many men have died crossing it. No one counts anymore. The first few bodies get names. After that, they're just reminders. You see them frozen mid-run, face down in the snow, rifles still clutched in stiff fingers. A few were dragged off. Most weren't. Some are just outlines now. Black patches where the snow melted and refroze around something once warm. The alley isn't a trap. That would imply someone planned it. This is worse. This is nature plus urban warfare plus a Soviet sniper who apparently doesn't need sleep, food, or sympathy. There's no pattern, no rhythm. You can't predict when it'll happen. Sometimes you'll go a whole day without a shot. You'll think maybe he's moved on, been killed, transferred. Then without warning, crack. A pop in the air like a firework without the celebration. And someone next to you folds in half and doesn't get back up. They say the sniper's a woman. Some Soviet marksmen with nerves of ice and eyes like gun barrels. Other times they say it's 2 or 3 of him, taking turns. Doesn't matter. Doesn't change the outcome. Crossing the alley is an art form now. There's no sprinting straight across. Not unless you're new or suicidal. The veterans hug the wall, duck, sprint to cover halfway, breathe, then move again. Fast, low, no heroics. Some guys tie mirrors to sticks, try to use reflections. Others throw rocks or broken helmets into the open, hoping to draw fire first. Doesn't always work. You learn to watch for glints, little flashes from windows. Of course, by the time you see one, you're probably already dead. Your turn comes in the afternoon. They need a runner to bring word to a unit stationed on the other side. Radios are down again. Snow, sabotage, or just Soviet luck. The lieutenant doesn't order you. He just looks around. Waits. Your legs move before your brain can file a complaint. You creep up to the edge. Peer out. The alley is dead quiet. Snow-covered rubble. Scorch marks. An abandoned supply cart turned on its side like a toy. Nothing moves. You exhale, then sprint. Your boots slam against the frozen street. Your breath burns. Your arms pump. Your body screams at you. Move faster. Duck lower. Your legs feel slow. Your back feels massive. Your helmet feels like a magnet for bullets. Halfway across you trip. Not over anything. Just nerves. Or fear. Or the world finally catching up to you. Your knee hits the pavement hard. You skid, roll, scramble behind a chunk of broken wall. No shot yet. No crack. Maybe they missed. Maybe they're waiting. You don't look back. You crawl the rest of the way, hands frozen, coat tearing on jagged debris. You make it, barely. Collapse behind a pile of bricks, chest heaving, ears tuned for gunfire that doesn't come. No one cheers. No one claps your back. One guy offers a nod. Another hands you a canteen. You drink. It tastes like rust and survival. The message gets delivered. Something about troop movements. Reinforcements that aren't coming. Doesn't matter. You're already thinking about the return trip. Later, you watch someone else try it. Young kid. Probably 19. Too tall for this war. Too clean. He runs fast, smooth. For the first 3 seconds. Then the crack. His leg snaps sideways mid-stride. Oh, he hits the ground hard, tries to crawl, doesn't get far. Another crack, then stillness. You look away. That's Sniper Alley. You cross it because you have to. Because no one's coming to carry you over. Because staying still is just dying slower. You don't beat the sniper. You just hope they're distracted. And if you make it through, you don't celebrate, you keep your head down, and wait for the next name to be forgotten in the snow. You'd think after a while your body would adjust, that it would just accept the cold, absorb it, normalise it, maybe stop whining about it. That doesn't happen. The cold doesn't become a background condition. It stays front and centre, sharp and personal, like an unwelcome houseguest that sits on your chest and eats your rations. It's not the kind of cold that bites. Biting sounds fast. This is slower. Smothering. Creeping. The kind of cold that gets into your bones and sets up shop, refuses to leave, and then starts rearranging the furniture. It's in your gloves. You can't feel your fingertips anymore, but they still hurt somehow. A dull, angry throb, like your body's trying to signal distress with broken wiring. You flex them out of habit, not to warm up, just to make sure they're still there. Your boots are a disaster. You haven't taken them off in 3 days, partly because your feet are safer inside, and partly because you're afraid you'll never get them back on. When you walk, it feels like there's slush between your toes. Not real slush. Internal slush. tissue turning into something it wasn't meant to be. Frostbite isn't dramatic. It's quiet. Starts as numbness, turns to stiffness, then a waxy grey look. One guy pulled off his sock, and a toe came with it. He stared at it for a long time, like he couldn't quite believe he'd just lost a piece of himself that casually. He didn't scream. He just started laughing. You don't ask how that story ends. Your breath fogs instantly. You've stopped wiping your face. The ice just builds up. On your scarf, in your eyelashes, inside your collar. One guy's coat froze shut at the zipper. He had to cut it off with a knife and then sleep wrapped in an old tent canvas. He didn't sleep much after that. There's a layer of frost on the inside of the trench wall. The inside. You scrape it off with your gloves, just so you can press your back against something that feels less like death. It doesn't help. It just transfers the cold more efficiently. There's a myth that the cold is clean, that it kills germs and purifies. That's a lie. The cold just changes what rots, slows it down, freezes it in place. You step over the same half-buried corpse every morning. He's got a dusting of snow on his chest now. Looks peaceful, if you ignore the hole in his face. You try not to think about warmth. That's dangerous. You think about warmth, and you start remembering what it felt like. A fireplace, dry socks, a hot mug of something real. You go down that road too far, and suddenly you're crying into your scarf and pretending it's just the wind again. One guy tried to start a fire in the trench last week. Just a small one. Broke down a crate, stuffed it with paper, lit it under a rusted can. The warmth was incredible. For 20 minutes. Then the smoke drew sniper fire. The fire went out. The guy didn't make it. You ration your matches like medicine. 1 strike per night. Maybe. You use them to light a cigarette, melt a bit of snow, or just feel human for 30 seconds. The guy who had a whole box, traded it for food, didn't regret it, didn't last much longer either. You don't take your gloves off anymore, not even to eat. You fumble your way through every task, buckling straps, reloading, unwrapping a bandage, all of it through thick, frozen fabric. You drop things, constantly, then stare at them in the snow, deciding if they're worth the pain of picking up. Your joints ache, all of them, knees, hips, neck. You creak like an old gate every time you shift position. You don't know if it's the cold or the malnutrition. Probably both. You're stiff in the morning, stiff at night, stiff in your sleep. The cold glues your muscles in place and dares you to move. Sleep is no help. You lie down curled, like a half-dead dog, wrapped in whatever blanket or coat scraps you still own. You don't get warm. You just get marginally less cold. You wake up with frost on your eyebrows and ice in your beard. You try to stretch, and your back cracks like a rifle bolt. The wind doesn't stop. It cuts through every layer. It gets under your helmet, down your collar, into your sleeves. It carries the smell of fire and rot. You'd almost welcome the smell of summer now, even if it meant flies and sweat and stink. At least it wasn't this. You eat cold. You fight cold. You bleed cold. Even your thoughts feel slower, like your brain's trying to function under a layer of ice. You can't remember words sometimes, or people's names. You say him and that guy more often now. It's easier. The cold doesn't kill you quickly. It wears you down, makes you brittle, makes you stupid. A guy once took his coat off during watch, said he was hot, said he felt great. They found him a few hours later, shirtless, grinning, frozen solid. It's called paradoxical undressing. It's the body's last practical joke before it shuts down. You wrap your arms tighter around yourself. The wind howls. Somewhere a shell lands. The earth shakes. Your hands shake with it. You don't even notice. You tell yourself the cold isn't the worst part. Then you breathe in through your nose and it stings like acid. And you realise it's still trying. You wake up to the sound of coughing. Not just one cough. A whole fit. Wet, deep and desperate. It echoes through the trench like a bad omen with lungs. You know who it is before you look. Same guy as yesterday. Same guy who said he was just cold and now sounds like he's drowning in his own chest. You don't ask if he's okay. You already know he's not. The real question is how long he'll last, and whether he's going to give it to the rest of you before he goes. Illness is just part of the landscape now, like the snow or the artillery. It's not an event, it's a condition. Everyone is sick, just in different stages. Some guys have fevers, some have chills, some can't stop shaking, some can't stop sweating. You all cough, just in different rhythms. It's practically a group performance at this point. The medics can't help. Not really. They have some bandages, maybe a few pills, mostly expired, mostly pointless. If you're lucky, you get told to rest, drink water, and try not to breathe on anyone. If you're unlucky, they hand you a cloth to bite on and tell you to stay still while they lance something. The guy coughing blood, he's already crossed a line. You've seen it before. First, it's just a dry tickle. Then it gets worse. Then comes the rattle. Then the blood. After that, it's usually 2 days. Maybe 3. If he's lucky, he'll just slip into unconsciousness. If he's not, he'll choke. And there's nothing anyone can do. You won't even bury him right away. Too frozen. Too busy. Too risky. You move away a little. Not out of cruelty, just instinct. You know it's probably too late. Whatever he's got is already in your lungs. But you try anyway. A few feet of distance. Turn your head. Adjust your scarf. Pretend that makes a difference. Someone else has trench foot. You saw the bandages. He changes them when he thinks no one's looking. The smell gives it away. It's bad. Blackened skin. Blisters. Wet, peeling flesh. His toes are going. One at a time. He winces when he walks, but he walks, because stopping is worse. Trench foot starts slow. Numbness, tingling. Then the skin softens. Splits. Gets infected. Eventually it rots. And when it gets that far, there's no saving it. You can't amputate in a trench. Not properly. You can't even wash your hands. You don't remember the last time your own feet felt dry. It may be back at the beginning. Back when you still believed dry socks were standard issue instead of mythical artifacts. Now you rotate the same 2 pairs. One frozen, one just damp enough to be disappointing. There's no real treatment. You rub them when you can. Dry them by the fire, if you're suicidal enough to light one. Stuff them with cloth. Hope. Desperation. Some guys use newspaper. Some steal rags off the dead. No one talks about it. You just do what you have to. Someone has lice. You can tell by the scratching. Sharp. Constant. Aggressive. He pulls off his gloves, rakes his nails across his scalp, keeps going until the skin turns red. You pretend not to notice. You scratch too. Everyone does. It never stops. The little bastards live in your seams, your waistband, your collar. You've named a few of them. Rashes are common. Weird ones. Red patches, bumps, open sores. No explanation. No cure. You put snow on it. Maybe iodine. Maybe just ignore it. If it spreads, you start to worry. But quietly. There's no dermatology in a trench. Just observation and grim patience. The medic has seen everything. And nothing. He stopped reacting months ago. He just glances, grunts, hands you something that smells like fuel and says, "Try this." He doesn't promise it'll help. No one promises anything anymore. One guy went blind in one eye. Infection, maybe. Or frost. Or both. He covers it with a rag now. Says he prefers it that way. Less to see, less to remember. You're not sure what you've got. Probably something. Your throat's raw. Your gums bleed a little. Your nose hasn't stopped running since December. Every few days you feel warm, even when it's below freezing. You take that as a bad sign. But you still stand. Still walk. Still hold the rifle. You cough into your sleeve. Doesn't help. Just moves the moisture around. The guy coughing blood does it again. Louder this time. His face is pale. His eyes sunken. He wipes his mouth and stares at the red on his hand, like he's surprised it came from him. Someone hands him a cloth. No one says anything. It's not personal. It's just logistics. You can't afford to lose more men, but you can't afford to be near him either. You try not to think about how many of you will be dead before bullets even come into it. From lungs, from cold, from bad food, from rot. It's not a glamorous war. It's just slow, crumbling damage. One man, one cough, one toe at a time. Someone brings a mail sack to the trench. You almost don't believe it at first. It looks out of place. Canvas, intact, with handwriting on the tags instead of bullet holes. Like it wandered in from a more civilized war. Like it doesn't know where it is. The lieutenant carries it like it's fragile. Maybe because it is. Or maybe because a mailbag now weighs more than a crate of ammo. Not in mass, but in meaning. He sets it down, doesn't say anything, just leaves it there and walks away. Everyone gathers, but no one pushes. No one wants to seem eager. Hope is dangerous. It's heavy. So you wait. Someone starts reading names. Slowly. Like he's afraid saying them out loud might get the owners killed. A few letters go out. Not many. Not enough. One guy cries when he gets his. Silently. He doesn't open it right away. Just holds it. Turns it over in his fingers like it might disappear if he presses too hard. Then he tucks it inside his coat, close to the heart, and walks off without a word. Your name doesn't get called. You expected that. You tell yourself it's fine. That maybe it got lost. That maybe your family wrote and it just didn't make it. That maybe the Soviets shot down the courier plane. You tell yourself every excuse you need to, but it still stings. Quietly, just beneath the numbness. Another guy reads his letter out loud. Not to brag, just because no one stopped him. It's from his sister. Talks about the weather back home. How cold it's been. How she had to break ice off the windows. You all laugh, but not because it's funny, just because it's ridiculous. Her cold is your body shut down last night, and I had to kick it back to life. The letter goes on. There's talk of ration cards, of standing in line, of trying to get soap, of rumours on the radio, of neighbours being taken away. She doesn't elaborate. You all know what that means. She says she hopes he's warm, that he has enough food, that his friends are treating him well, that she's proud of him, that they all are, that his sacrifice means something. He folds the letter when he's done. Doesn't say anything else. Just sits there for a while, looking past the trench wall like maybe the words might float back across the miles and turn into something real. You think about writing one back, but you don't. You never do. Not because you can't. You've got a pencil? Paper? Sort of. A torn page from a Russian field manual, blank on the back? Enough space for a few lines. But what would you say? That you're cold? That you're starving? That you haven't seen the sun in 2 weeks and your boots are full of pus and regret? No. You'd lie, like they did. You'd say things are fine, that you're holding up, that the food's not bad, that you miss them, that you're proud to serve, that it'll all be over soon. That's what letters are now. Little packages of fiction, sweet lies from a burning world, words scrubbed clean for people who can't handle the truth and shouldn't have to. A guy once wrote the truth in his letter, said everything, the mud, the blood, the body count, said he hadn't slept in days, that he couldn't remember his brother's face, that he watched a man freeze to death while eating soup. He sealed the envelope with shaking hands. The censors burned it. He didn't try again. So you write nothing, or you write carefully, or you don't write at all. Some guys just stare at their paper until the cold curls it. One guy started writing to someone who doesn't exist. A made-up girl. Said it helped. Said he could say anything he wanted because she wasn't real. He showed the letter to no one. Carried it with him. They found it folded in his shirt after he caught shrapnel to the back. The letter was clean, dry, unsmeared. Sometimes that's enough. Sometimes you just want to feel like someone, somewhere, is still waiting. You lie down. Not because it's safe, not because the war has paused to let you rest. You lie down because your body has stopped asking for permission. Your knees gave out 2 hours ago, and your spine has been threatening mutiny since morning. You're not sleeping. You're collapsing. The ground is packed dirt, ice, and whatever soaked through during the last freeze-thaw cycle. It's not soft. It's not clean. It's not even level. You fold yourself into it like luggage. One arm under your head, the other across your ribs. Your rifle stays pressed to your chest like a security blanket made of steel and rust. There's no blanket. There was once. It got soaked, then frozen, then left behind in a building you don't control anymore. You wrap your coat tighter, but it does nothing. You curl in tighter, but that just concentrates the cold. You close your eyes anyway, then come the noises. Sleep here isn't the absence of sound. It's the negotiation with it. Somewhere, distant artillery thumps like a heartbeat gone wrong. Closer, machine gun bursts rattle like someone shaking a metal cage full of bees. Down the trench, a man groans. One coughs. Another whispers something into his own collar. You pretend it's wind. And then the rats arrive. They don't creep. They don't skitter. They thud. Heavy, bold, unapologetic. They run across your legs like you're part of the landscape. One crawls past your face. You don't flinch. You're too tired to flinch. You've made peace with their presence. A mutual understanding. They won't eat you if you don't die too close to where they're nesting. You used to be disgusted. Now you just feel disrespected. The guy next to you has been snoring for 20 minutes. Loud, wet, uneven. It's amazing. Not because he snores, but because he can sleep through this. You'd envy him if you didn't know why. He got concussed yesterday, took a beam to the helmet. The sleep might not be voluntary. You shift. Your hip finds something sharp, a rock maybe, or a piece of shell casing. You don't move it. You just memorize its shape. You name it. Sharp bastard number 7. You've got a list. The sky above you isn't black. It's smeared. A low, churning grey that never commits to day or night. The snow glows faintly. Not because of stars. Those are gone. But because of flares, firelight, and the constant flicker of a city burning at the edges. You finally start to drift. And then a whistle. You're upright before you know why. Just instinct. A sharp breath. A pause. Then the crack. Not near, but close enough. You duck anyway. Debris falls. You hear someone shout, but not in pain. Just in rage. The bomb landed far enough to spare you. Not far enough to let you relax. You lie back down. This time slower. You know there's no second whistle. The next one will come in silence. Maybe 10 minutes from now. Maybe never. You roll onto your side. The sharp rock presses deeper. You keep it. Your thoughts aren't words anymore. Just flashes. Your mother's kitchen. A dog you haven't seen in years. A field. A train. Someone laughing. Then that same someone screaming. You try to edit it as you go. Try to turn it into something gentler. It never works. Sleep here is not rest. It's hiding. It's turning off the lights in your brain for long enough to escape the screaming. Sometimes you get lucky. Sometimes it's just blackness. Other times it's worse. You dream of running. Of your boots filling with water. Of not being able to scream. You wake up with your hands clenched, teeth grinding, breath sharp. You wipe your face. Pretend it's sweat. Not fear. One guy yells in his sleep. Loud. Panicked. The kind of yell that shakes everyone else awake. You grab his shoulder. He swings. Misses. Then he starts crying. You sit with him until he stops. Neither of you says anything. You both go back to pretending sleep is still an option. Someone used to sing. Low. Off-key. A lullaby from home. It was awful. Comforting, somehow. He stopped after his brother died. Said the song didn't work without the second voice. You miss that voice. You miss the distraction. You miss the illusion. You lie back down again. Third try. Fourth? Doesn't matter. You stare at the sky until your eyes stop working. You know you'll wake up cold, wet, and sore. But if you're lucky, you'll wake up at all. You wake up to news that no one says out loud. It's in the silence. In the way the lieutenant looks at his map without blinking. In the sudden disappearance of the runner who used to bring word from Division HQ. In the fact that the last wounded man was dragged into the dugout. And nobody asked when the stretcher team would be back. Because they won't be. You're surrounded now. Encircled. Cut off. The trap closed days ago. It just took you this long to accept it. They called it a pincer movement when it started. Sounds elegant, doesn't it? Like something out of a manual. 2 arms sweeping in from either side. Methodical, strategic, clean. In practice, it meant that while you were watching the front, the sides disappeared. Then the rear. Now the front doesn't matter. There is no front, just an inside. And you're in it. Someone finds a radio, not yours. A Soviet model, cracked but functional. You tune in and hear cheerful Russian chatter, not about you specifically, just the general mood of people who now have the upper hand and know it. They sound warm, well-fed, like they've had sleep. It makes you irrationally angry. You want to pretend you'll break out, that someone's working on a rescue plan, that somewhere there's a general circling your position on a map with a red pencil and saying, "We can't leave them there." You want to believe that, because the alternative is accepting you've just become part of a military museum exhibit in the making. There's talk of supplies coming by air. You laugh once. It's hollow. You've seen what gets through. A crate of boots, 3 tins of meat, and a busted medical kit parachuting directly into Soviet hands. One time, a crate landed near your trench. Everyone sprinted for it. It was filled with skis. Skis! In the middle of urban warfare, you kept one as a joke. Now it's firewood, the food is gone, the water's low, the fuel's frozen solid. You're out of medicine, you're out of time. But the worst part, the truly soul-chewing part, is that you're still expected to fight. Because just being surrounded doesn't mean you stop. You still man your post. You still take cover when shells land. You still check your rifle, knowing full well there's only one full magazine left and it's been wet for days. You still look over the trench wall like there's somewhere to run. There isn't. But you look anyway. It's habit. Like hope. But with worse timing. Morale has become a fossil. Nobody says the word. You joke, if at all. You make small bets. Which wall will collapse next? Which guy will snap first? Who's still wearing both boots? It passes the time between mortar strikes. The snow never stops. It piles on the wreckage like frosting over a graveyard. You don't clear it. You just dig through it when you need something. A rifle. A body. A way out that isn't there. They tell you to hold. You laugh again. Quietly this time. Hold what? You want to ask. The air? The concept of dignity? Your position on a street that hasn't had a name since the signs burned? No one gives real orders anymore. Not the kind that matter. Just rotations. Stand here. Watch this. Try not to freeze. Try not to starve. Try not to notice the ring tightening. You see the Soviets more now. They're closer. Sometimes through the smoke. Sometimes through binoculars. Sometimes with your own eyes from behind a broken window. You're close enough to hear them talk. Laugh. Sing. They're not celebrating yet, but they will. You're sure of it. They're patient. They've got time. You don't. One guy still talks about the relief force. Says the 6th Army will break through any day now. You nod. Not because you believe him. Because you're tired of contradicting people who need to believe in something. Even if it's nonsense. Especially if it's nonsense. You hear a rumour. Command says to conserve ammo. That's code. Not for strategy. For you're on your own now. They're saving the good stuff for someone who might still make it out. You think about digging. A tunnel maybe. Some sort of escape. Then you remember the ground is frozen. Your shovel broke last week. And even if you did make it out, where would you go? The map looks like a closed fist now. Every road in, every alley out, blocked. Not just by troops, by wreckage, barbed wire, burning tanks, frozen horses. The exits are stories now. And you are part of the punchline. You've run out of food. Again. That phrase has lost its urgency. It's not an announcement anymore. It's just part of the rotation. Like, watch your sector, or don't step on that. Someone says it and no one reacts. There's no point. The last proper rations were gone 2 weeks ago. Maybe longer. You can't measure time by days anymore. Only by meals that weren't. At first, you stretched things. Broke the crackers in half. Shared tins of meat with 3 other men. Crushed old biscuit crumbs and poured hot water over them to trick your stomach into calling it soup. You had tricks back then. You had hope. Now you have desperation. So when someone says they found wallpaper, you don't laugh. You follow them. Quietly. Like a dog sniffing out the scent of old garbage. Because wallpaper, actual glued to the wall wallpaper, means starch, paste, glue. Boiled down, it becomes a kind of film-thin sludge. Nutritionally worthless, psychologically vital. The building is half collapsed, roof open to the grey sky. There's frost on the staircase and icicles hanging from the window frames. But the wallpaper is still there. Peeling, yellowed, covered in old flowers. You tear a strip down like you're stripping bark from a tree. Fold it. Stuff it into your coat. It feels ridiculous. It feels necessary. Someone tries it raw. Just rips a piece and chews. His eyes water. He spits most of it out, but chews again, then swallows. Better than nothing, he says, coughing. That's the highest rating anything gets now. Later, you boil yours, strip by strip, in a dented helmet over a tiny flame made from broken chair legs. The water turns a milky brown, smells like dust and rot. You sip it like it's soup. You pretend the chunks aren't mould. You finish it all. Next comes the boots. Not your current ones, God forbid. You need those to walk. But someone found a pair from a dead comrade. Cracked leather, half frozen. You gut them like game. Slice the soles into strips. Scrape off as much dirt as possible. And boil. Boot stew. The menu is getting creative. You chew the pieces for hours. They don't break down. Your jaw aches. Your stomach gurgles, unsure if it's being fed or attacked. The texture is like rope soaked in motor oil. You swallow anyway. Because what else are you going to do? You remember when food had taste. When meals had variety. Bread wasn't a solid block. Meat wasn't suspect. Coffee wasn't traded like gold. That world feels invented now. Like a dream someone else had and told you about. You've eaten worse than boots, though. You just don't say it out loud. There was a rat, big one. Someone caught it near the supply trench, skinned it, cooked it over a candle. It smelled like victory. You shared a bite, pretended it was something else. That was weeks ago. You've also eaten horse. That one wasn't controversial. The horse had been dead for a while, but still, meat is meat. You roasted it over a barrel fire, cut it into strips, dried some for later. That later came fast. It always does. One guy brought in a pigeon once. No one asked how he got it. He just sat down, plucked it silently, and roasted it over a magazine page. It barely fed 3 of you. But for 10 minutes, you remembered what hunger relief felt like. Then it passed. And you were cold again. The worst part is what you hear. Whispers. Not commands. Not orders. Just quiet speculation. About the guy who died last night. About how thin he was. About how cold it is. You don't engage, but you hear it. And the worst part is knowing you understand. You hate that part of yourself. The part doing math behind your eyes. You'd never do it, you think. Not unless. Then you stop thinking. You scrape the last bits of paste from the wallpaper pot. It tastes like wet paper and glue. You gag. Swallow again. Hunger doesn't care about dignity. One guy jokes that the next ration drop will be a cookbook. 101 ways to prepare floorboards. You laugh, because the alternative is crying. Another guy finds a jar of something. Maybe jam, maybe grease. The label is burned off. You take turns tasting it. It's sour, salty, could be spoiled, could be heaven. Either way, it's gone in 2 minutes. You don't eat to live now. You eat to not die. There's a difference. Your body is cannibalizing itself. You've lost weight, muscle, warmth. You're colder than before, even with the same layers. Your breath fogs faster. Your fingers feel like rubber, but you keep eating. You keep scraping, chewing, boiling, sharing. You keep going. Because there's nothing left to chew on but your future. And that too is starting to taste like wallpaper. There's a moment, a very specific moment, when you stop expecting things to get better. Not a scream. Not a collapse. No dramatic speech. No lightning bolt of clarity. Just a shift. Like a door closing somewhere behind you. Quiet, permanent. You stop checking the sky for supply drops. You stop listening for tanks in the distance. You stop glancing at your watch when the sun rises and sets, because the sun doesn't mean anything anymore. The calendar is dead. Time isn't passing. It's just stacking. You still move, still breathe, still eat when there's food and shoot when someone shouts. But inside, the part that used to hope, that part's gone, folded in, dismissed, fired from its job for incompetence. Hope doesn't belong here anymore. It's a liability. When you had it, you kept trying to make things make sense. You'd look at maps, trace routes, whisper about reinforcements. You'd say things like, if we can hold out one more week, or once winter breaks, or Berlin must know we're still here. Now you don't say anything, because you've seen the truth. No one's coming. Command isn't sending help. They're not out of ideas, they're out of interest. You're not part of the strategy anymore. You're a number that got lost in a column. A town circled in red that someone stopped looking at. And you're still here, waiting, fighting, existing, but not believing. The guys around you are the same. You see it in their eyes, the blankness. Not fear, not pain, just nothing. Eyes that used to flick toward every sound now just stare, like dogs too tired to bark. You used to tell jokes, not good ones, not clean ones, but something. Now you don't. No one has the breath to spare. And even if you did, no one remembers how to laugh without coughing halfway through. One guy started talking to himself, not muttering, not in stress, just holding conversations out loud. He thanks his boots when they hold together. He apologizes to the wall when he leans on it. He tells his rifle goodnight before sleeping. No one says a word. No one stops him. He might be the most sane of you all. Letters stopped coming. Even the ones full of lies. Even the ones from people trying to sound cheerful while rationing bread crusts. The mail stopped weeks ago. You didn't even notice until someone mentioned it. You shrugged. Of course it stopped. Why wouldn't it? The last man who still cleaned his weapon daily, he stopped yesterday. You watched him lay the rag down and not pick it back up. Just stared at the dirt, like he was waiting for something that didn't exist. He hasn't spoken since. You dream sometimes, but they're not dreams. Just memory fragments with the volume turned up. Faces from home? Roads you'll never walk again? A bed that isn't made of wet canvas and smoke? You wake up more tired than when you slept. You stop telling people what you dreamed about. It makes things worse. You don't count losses now, not out loud. You see an empty space in the trench and you nod. That space used to be someone. Now it's not. You move on. The memory weighs nothing. It has to. The idea of going home isn't even fantasy anymore. It's comedy. A joke too cruel to tell. You can't imagine what you'd even do if you got there. Stand in a doorway, look at a table, breathe. You don't belong to peace anymore. You belong to this. To hunger and smoke and cold. To bullet holes and whispered names. To a world that shrank down to a few blocks and stayed there. One man tried to give a speech, rallied the men, said they were proud, said they were strong, said this place would be remembered. He died the next morning. It wasn't ironic. It was just statistically appropriate. Another guy asked what we were still fighting for. Nobody answered. Not because we didn't know, because we did. You take your despair like medicine now. 1 dose every morning. Helps numb the questions. Helps ignore the noise. You swallow it without water, without complaint. You even share it when someone's short. Pass the bottle. Take your hit. Carry on. You don't call it giving up. You call it adapting. Because hope was the first casualty. And despair? Despair is what's left when you learn how to live without it. You're still here. That's the miracle, apparently. That's what counts as a success now. Existence. Except you're not sure who for. Not for yourself. Not anymore. Not for the man next to you either. He hasn't spoken since yesterday. He just stares at his boots like they might decide where to go next. They won't. There's nowhere left to go. You're boxed in, completely. The map's used to show possibilities. Flank routes, fallback positions, dotted arrows. Now they just look like prison blueprints. Circles around your location. Red lines where white used to be. And no green zones. Not even fake ones. The only arrows now are the ones pointing inward. You ask someone quietly, "What's the plan?" He shrugs. That's the new language. Shrugs, blinks, half smiles that mean, don't ask. You've been told two things repeatedly. 1. Hold your position. 2. Don't retreat. The first is fantasy. The second is policy. No one officially said retreating is illegal. But everyone knows it is. You don't even talk about it in hypotheticals. Because if someone overhears, if someone writes it down, if some officer catches wind of it, you're not just a deserter. You're a traitor. Surrender. Don't make them laugh. It's not permitted. Not even in whispers. The command structure, what's left of it, made that clear. You're to fight to the last. To defend Stalingrad with honour. As if there's any of that left to defend. You've heard the broadcasts. The ones they pipe through the speakers back in the safer zones. Glorious language, sacrifice, struggle, victory. None of it reflects the smell coming off the guy 3 bunks down who hasn't moved in a full day. You're not in a heroic defence. You're in a cage. And every side of it is closing in. Once, someone asked, if we surrendered, what would happen? The silence afterward was longer than any answer could have been. No one said a word. Not because they didn't know, but because they did. You've seen it after all. The few who tried, waved a cloth, laid down a weapon, walked out with hands up. Not many, but enough to know what the Soviets do when they feel generous. When they don't, you just hear the shots. Even if they did take you, you'd be a prisoner. Not a guest, not a man, just another sack of bones waiting out the cold in a different cage. Less bullets, more beatings. Same hunger. So you don't retreat. Not because of orders, because of math. And you don't surrender. Not because of pride, because of futility. The city's crumbling, brick by brick. Snow piled on top of ruins. Ruins piled on top of history. The only directions you can go are straight into a sniper's scope, down into frozen rubble, or deeper into what's left of yourself. You think sometimes about running. Just running. No plan. No gear. Just pick a direction and start moving until something stops you. A bullet? A wall? A river? The idea has weight. It's stupid. But it's not as stupid as staying still and pretending that counts as surviving. You were told to hold. That this was strategic. That this would turn the tide. But it doesn't feel like a tide. It feels like drowning in place. Someone found a map this morning. An old one, pre-war. Bright colours, clean borders, roads with names. He laid it out like treasure. A different world. A version of here that doesn't include starvation, frostbite, or men named after the last thing they coughed up. It got burned for heat within the hour. So much for direction. The lieutenant stopped talking strategy. He just passes out rotations now. Sits with his back to the trench wall and stares at the sky, like it owes him something. You've stopped asking for news. When it comes, it's always bad. Someone's dead. A post was lost. A ration drop landed 3 kilometres too far. Someone high up gave another speech. You stopped listening to those too. You're not even angry anymore. Not at the army. Not at command. Not even at the war. Anger needs fuel. You're out. So here you are. No retreat. No surrender. No options. Just a rifle with 5 bullets. A scarf that smells like smoke and mould. And a piece of bread in your pocket that you've been saving for later, even though you know later probably isn't showing up. You've stopped wondering how you'll die. It's not a dramatic question anymore. It's not a haunting thought at night. It's background noise, like the wind, or the snow, or the guy 2 places down who hasn't blinked in hours. Death is constant here. Not loud, always. Sometimes it's quiet, slow, bureaucratic even. You don't notice it arriving. Just a man who doesn't get up in the morning. A cough that gets worse. A shiver that turns into a stillness. You check on him and he's cold. Already stiff. Still holding his helmet like it mattered. Other times it's immediate. A sniper, a shell, a piece of shrapnel that skips every layer of clothing and finds the softest part of someone's body like it was built for it. No scream. Just a jerk. A drop. A pool that steams for a few seconds and then freezes like the rest of you. You've seen both. You've stopped ranking them. The man next to you died last night. You heard him coughing for days. Rough, heavy, like he was trying to dig something out of his lungs with each breath. Then it got quiet. Then he exhaled, and didn't inhale again. You didn't move him, not right away. It was too cold, too dark, too exhausting. You just pulled your scarf higher and tried to ignore the shape beside you. He was dead. You were tired. That was the exchange. Someone will take him away today. Or tomorrow. Or never. Depends on whether there's a shovel still intact, and if the ground's any softer than frozen stone. You don't know how many are left. Your unit started with a number. That number got smaller. Then it stopped being a number, and there started being faces. Now it's just shadows that shuffle in the snow. You nod at them. Sometimes they nod back. You don't always check who's missing anymore. When you do get around to thinking about your own death, it doesn't come with fear. Just logistics. Will it be fast? Probably not. Those tend to go to people standing in the wrong place at the wrong second. You're careful. Unfortunately. Will it be from hunger? Possibly. You haven't eaten in a day and a half. Your stomach stopped growling. That was yesterday. Now it just aches in a way that's almost peaceful, like it gave up too. Will it be cold? Likely. You're numb from the knees down, and the toes you can feel are burning, which means soon you won't feel them at all. You've started to shake again, even when you're still. Maybe it'll be sickness? That cough you've been ignoring. The rattling in your chest that wakes you up, if you sleep at all. There's blood when you spit, but you stopped looking at that. Or maybe it'll be nothing. Maybe you'll close your eyes one night and just not open them. No scream, no explosion, just an end. That idea comforts you. You wouldn't admit that, but it does. No one talks about death anymore. It used to come with rituals. Burial. Silence. A few words. A cross if you had the time and materials. Now it's a shrug, a gesture. He's gone. That's it. Someone checks his pockets, not to rob him, just to pass on anything useful. Matches, ammo, a dry sock if you're lucky. Your boots are still on. That's what matters. If they come off, that's it. That's the sign. Nobody who removes their boots voluntarily lasts long. Either they don't get them back on, or they don't care to. One guy left the trench last week, said he was going to take a piss. Nobody saw where he went. They found his coat later. Just the coat, buttoned, folded, placed gently on a half-collapsed wall. No one asked questions. That was his choice. You understand it, more than you should. The shells have been quieter lately. Not because the enemy stopped, because they don't need to fire as much. You're not moving. You're not reinforcing. You're just here, slowly thinning out. A garrison made of ghosts and coughs. There's a rat sitting on your foot. You don't kick it. It's warm. It's alive. That's more than most things. You write a note, maybe. In your head, if not on paper. Not for anyone in particular. Just to say you were here. That you existed. That your hands got cold, your stomach screamed, your legs cramped and you didn't run. Not because you were brave. Because there was nowhere to go. You lean back. Close your eyes. The snow is falling again. Maybe you'll wake up. Maybe you won't. Either way, the war keeps going. So, yeah, that's what it would have been like. You probably wouldn't have made it past the first week. Maybe not even the first night, depending on how well your boots fit or how optimistic you were about breakfast. But you did make it here. To the end of this video, which frankly is more than a lot of men in Stalingrad ever got. If you're somehow still awake, congratulations. If you're not, maybe that's for the best. Leave a comment if you want to. Maybe tell me what time it is where you are, or what strange part of the world you're watching from. I read them. Usually with the same expression as a man inspecting a can of mystery meat, but still. If you like this kind of content, maybe subscribe. If you didn't, well, you still technically lived longer than most of the 6th Army. I'll see you in the next one. Or I won't, depends on the weather. Good night.